Good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting of April 28th, 2022. In calling this meeting to order, we've got a consent agenda, and then we do have at the latter end of our time here a public hearing related to utilities. So just to keep everyone in line in mind of what we've got on our agenda. So with that, I'd like to call our meeting to order. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Harkey,
Present.
Vice Mayor Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember Ellis,
Here.
Councilmember Orlando.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, City Clerk. Our invocation tonight will be brought by Pastor Tim Klontz of Family Bible Church. Good to see you again, sir. Our Pledge of Allegiance by Vice Mayor Terry Rowe.
Well, let's pray. God, we thank you for the privilege we have to come and seek you. God, you've said that the nation will be blessed who puts God as their Lord. And I thank you that I live in America. We live here in Chandler. And Lord, we just thank you that this group wants to honor you as Lord. And so I ask for wisdom for all of us, Lord, that especially all the council members, that you just give them the divine guidance they need to help govern our city, Lord, and all the planning and things that happen here. So bless them tonight and help the people that are here, Lord, everyone to have a supportive attitude that we can work together and that you would bless our city as we put you first. We thank you in the name of our Lord, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Great blessing. Will you join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, council member. Council, we looked at consent agenda on Monday, had some conversations on a few things. Is there any interest to pull anything? If not, a motion would be in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Orlando.
thank you, sir. I move that we approve the council regular meeting minutes, consent agenda, item 1 through 32. Of course, item 29, there's going to be a public hearing.
And I second that, Mayor.
Is it
If I may jump
city
in.
attorney?
Thank you. Actually, items 30 and 31 have to be considered after your public hearing.
You're right, 30 and 31 as well. So 29, 30, and 31 will be
So,
pulled for public hearing.
so
And I still,
could you, I think
second
it's
it.
1 through 28, actually. And, well,
Well, you got item 32 is informational, but, okay, let's put it this way. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 28, dated April 28, 2022.
and Mayor, I second that motion.
all right. Council, before we vote on this, is there any recusals or any comments necessary? Seeing none, please vote.
Councilmember Ellis? It did- Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. Thank you, Council. Next, item number 29, 30, and 31, we have a public hearing. So item number 29, I would like to open up our public hearing. Thank you, Matt Dunbar, for staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's great to be here with you tonight to go through this public hearing for you on our utility rate changes that are proposed. I don't want to steal any thunder from Mike and Miranda, but I don't know if you heard, we have a new store opening in Chandler. They've decided, for those of us that are allergy sensitive, they're going to sell perfumes without a scent. So the name of the store is Total Nonsense. So we're looking forward to them opening up here in Chandler. I'm sure it'll be a huge success.
You never fail to entertain.
Well, getting into kind of the meat of what we want to talk about tonight for our public hearing presentation. We're going to be talking about our utility revenue requirements, the history of the rate information that we're going to be presenting tonight, the cost of service findings and what a cost of service does and is for both our water, wastewater, reclaimed and solid waste, all of those enterprise funds. And then we'll talk about the proposed ordinance and resolution that's also on the agenda for tonight. First of all, just to remind the public in general, we do a 10-year look at our revenue analysis for our enterprise funds. So water, wastewater, reclaimed water, and our solid waste utilities are all enterprise funds and have to be self-supporting. That means the revenues generated from user fees are specific to support the actual needs of those funds. When we looked at our 10-year analysis, we saw that we needed some increases in our revenues, 2% for water, 4% for wastewater, which initially was an 8% reclaimed water increase, and a 6% solid waste increase. Those increases were needed to support a variety of things. We have water treatment and production plant improvements, water reclamation facility improvements, with a focus on replacements of some of our mains, well construction and rehabilitation, some sewer assessments and rehabilitations, and an advanced water treatment. For our operations and maintenance, those costs are also increasing. We're seeing water purchase costs increase, as well as utility and chemical increases through inflation and other increases. And then our solid waste contract costs and recycling costs have also increased. So those are some of the drivers that have really caused the need for an increase to our revenues in those utilities. Just as a reminder, the city of Chandler only provides water, wastewater, reclaimed, and solid waste. Utilities like electric and gas are done by private utilities. So this year, in combination with our 10-year analysis that we do here in budget, we also were involved with a cost of service study. And that cost of service study, we use an outside party that helps us identify all of the costs associated with each customer classification in these different utilities. The reason we do a cost of service analysis is to make sure that the rates that we're charging our ratepayers are fair and equitable. And a cost of service study is most commonly utilized in water and wastewater industry. It more accurately reflects those costs of providing the actual services to each customer class, and it distributes the revenue requirement to those customers based on their proportional system costs. So at the beginning, when we said we needed a 2% increase in our revenue for water, for example, it looks at all the customer classifications and says who is causing the costs to go up, and are they paying their appropriate share from an equitability standpoint, and then assigns the actual 2% revenue requirement in different percentages to those customer classes. A little bit about the rate change process. So this talks about, on the rate change information, what information is available. So our anticipated fiscal year 21-22, current fiscal year rate increases were discussed in work sessions and identified in the adopted budget in last year's budget process this time of year. Many of the HOAs and businesses contact the city starting in September to gather that change information for their budget processes. So Helen Parker in budget and we field those calls, as well as our utility staff down in utility billing. They'll handle those calls as well, where they call in and say, what are the anticipated increases, so they can adjust their budgets appropriately. This year, we shared with them our proposed increases, which were 2% for water, 8% wastewater, 8% reclaimed, and 6% solid waste. We didn't have the exact breakout of what the cost of service percentages would be for residential versus industrial versus multifamily at that time. We just were able to share what the kind of flat overall revenue requirement was for those different funds. With that, going into our rate change timing, if rate adjustments are needed, they're implemented in the city of Chandler. We do an every other year implementation. This fiscal year 2021 or 21-22 is when we were to have rates go into effect. They're to take effect January of 2022. So 6 months ago, almost 5 months ago. The cost of service study that's done every 4 or 5 years kind of put some hindered that a little bit for us. Because due to some delays in that process with our COVID impacts and consultant personnel turnover, the cost of service finalization was delayed. And so the planned rate increases were delayed about 6 months at lower overall rates. So initially our wastewater rate was planned at an 8% increase. It came in with a revenue requirement at 4% as we were going through that study. So because of that adjustment for the last 6 months, those rate increases haven't happened yet for all of those businesses and HOAs that have already budgeted in for this current year, those impacts. This slide talks about kind of the history of the rate information that's been presented. So starting in June of 2020 through October of 2021, we worked with Raftelis Consulting on the cost of service computations. In May and July, again, we published the 21-22 proposed adopted budget that had those anticipated utility rate changes of 2, 8, 8, and 6% for those respective enterprise funds. And then in August of 2021, we had a revised implementation timeline for our cost of service, and that revised it to July of 2022 to be able to meet the Arizona revised statute timeline requirements. In October was our initial presentation with Mayor and Council, and at that meeting we talked about solid waste. We did receive some direction from you at that meeting. That direction was to come back with some detail on options of changing to 2 free Recycling Solid Waste Collection Center, or RSWCC, visits. Initially, the proposal from the cost of service study was to charge all customers going to the RSWCC. The direction we received was to look at what would the effect be if we were to offer 2 free visits to that facility. Also, increasing the number of bulk requests that are considered free from 1 to 2 was the direction we received. And so we went back with our consultant ran the numbers and adjusted what the actual revenue requirement from a ratepayer perspective would need to be if those revenues were adjusted to meet those additional services provided to our residents. Then on November 1st, we had our initial presentation with Mayor and Council on water, wastewater, and reclaimed. And we received some direction there as well to move forward with 100% alignment over 5 years for our water enterprise fund and bring back some options for recommending for the recommended 50% cost of service alignment in wastewater, bringing that up to 75% or 100% over 5 years. And then in December, on December 9th, we came back with those options both on solid waste as well as the wastewater direction that we received to make those adjustments and see what that did. Those additional options were presented and the direction was received to move forward on alley fees, to keep the 2 free bulk and RSWCC visits, and then to move forward with the 75% cost of service alignment on wastewater over 5 years. With that direction being received, we began in January and February our customer outreach and education campaign. It was a robust website information. We did a video. We had social media posts. We had 3 public meetings on the fee changes. We had a presentation with community partners, including the chamber. And we gathered feedback via online, in person, and on the telephone throughout that time period and even up until today. In fact, right before this meeting, I spent about 40 minutes with a citizen talking about alley collection and how passionate they were with keeping alley collection, and they were fine with the additional increase for them. So the notice of intent came to you, Mayor and Council, for water, wastewater reclaimed and adopted the setting the public hearing for tonight. And then tonight, of course, is the public hearing, first read of the ordinance, and then the resolution brought to you for initial action. So a little bit more about some of the outreach that we did throughout this process. Every year when we do these changes, we try to get better and better at the outreach that we do. And so, we're always learning and growing. In fact, today I talked with another resident and he mentioned something that we could do better, like with the RSWCC. We had a tent or an A-frame that had the information on there. And he said, well, everyone crosses the scale and talks to the person there. They could hand out a flyer. And that's great information. Take it back, and next time we'll have a flyer if there are impacts at the RSWCC. But this year, what we did as far as our website, the website had a robust information. The public meeting schedules are there. All the council action schedule items were there. The process timeline, the rate changes by classification. We had example bills. We had FAQs. We had a history of rate changes and a 5-year anticipated rate alignment. So going beyond typically what we share is kind of over the next 2 years what the rates will look like. We took the full 5-year implementation out so everyone can see how those rates align over the 5 years. We provided the cost of service actual presentations that we did with you, Mayor and Council. All of those presentations are available for the public to view, as well as the cost of service reports. And then we also had a video presentation, about a 13-minute video that went through what a cost of service is and talks about all of the results of that cost of service. Then we also had public outreach meetings. We had a residential focus meeting at the end of January. We did a residential with alley kind of focus because there were some specific actions that were going to affect alley customers. And that was in February, as well as a non-residential focus meeting in February. And then the chamber also allowed us to present at their public policy meeting on April 4th or February 4th. And we met with individual stakeholders as needed, including some of our large semiconductor partners in the city, as well as others. Information was also communicated in the city scope. On the utility bill, there was a message on the utility bill, a message board at the RSWCC. We had social media posts. We had media releases and data and interviews that were provided for several news articles that were written for local papers. So from the water cost of service findings, this is to reach 100% cost of service alignment in the water, on the water side. So you'll see our 2% revenue requirement is still met. The total revenues being brought into our water enterprise fund will equal 2%, but they'll be allocated across the customer classifications differently depending on their utilization of those services. So our residential increase is about 1.27% recommended for coming up in July as the implementation date. Multifamily would be 1.83%, non-residential 3.79%, landscape 5.88%, and industrial 4.33%. This slide shows some average water bill examples. So you'll notice what the differential is for the average water bill in those different classifications. For our residential customers, it's an increase monthly of about 45 cents. For our multifamily customers, it's a $22 increase. If you break that down, that's 150 unit on that average apartment complex, let's say. That equals about 15 cents per unit per month as the increase. On the wastewater side, similar story. Again, this is to reach 75% cost of service alignment. And initially, as we talked with HOAs and different businesses that contacted us, the initial estimate was an 8% increase for the fiscal year, or for the calendar year, excuse me. And so this is where the actual came in after the cost of service to reach 75% alignment. A 1.21% increase for residential, 8.3% for multifamily, 6.88 for non-residential, and then 6.88 for industrial. So the majority of them are lower than the 8% we initially anticipated. Multifamily is slightly higher, but again, with the rates being delayed by 6 months, in effect, the first year will be about a 4.15% increase for the year. And then next year, they'd see the full effect of the 8.3%. Again, for an average bill example, our residential customers have about a 33% or a 33 cent increase, not percent, but a 33-cent increase per month. Multifamily is about $121.50 per month. And with the 150 units, that breaks down to about 81 cents. So for our multifamily customers, with the 15 cents for water, the total is still 96 cents, under $1 of impact. Right now in the city of Chandler and all over Arizona, rents are increasing significantly. And we've had multiple conversations with our residents, and we know that that's a pain point. But we do want to point out that water and wastewater fees are not the drivers of those. There's a recent news article that ABC 15 did using two Chandler apartment complexes as examples, one going up $518 a month or 47%, the other going up $724 a month or 55%. Again, the water portion of that is less than $1. The water and wastewater portions of that are less than $1. So there are significant impacts to those that are in multifamily communities. Again, our impact is pretty minimal when you compare to some of the other increases that they're seeing in their bills. On the reclaimed water side, of course, in reclaimed water, we only have one classification of users, and that is a reclaimed user. So the cost of service is exactly what we anticipated as far as a revenue need for that enterprise fund. So we needed an 8% coming up in July, and then it's followed by 2 7% increases in the out years anticipated. And each year we look at the actual needs going forward for those out years. We never lock in a rate and say that's the rate no matter if we need it or not. We do a review every year. And then on here, we also have the monthly average increase for those customers that use reclaimed water. For our solid waste findings, really solid waste, we also have one classification of customers. We have residential customers in the city of Chandler. We don't offer solid waste services to businesses or to non-residential customers. And that includes at the RSWCC Center. So our reclaimed or our solid waste center, anyone that goes in there cannot be a commercial account. They have to be a resident here in the city of Chandler. Initially, we anticipated needing a 6% increase to our operating costs. And throughout the analysis, the consultant came back and really kind of targeted 3 areas where they saw some inequities. While we do have one customer class, there were specific services that could be tied to specific groups of individuals that are utilizing those services. And those areas were for the usage of the RSWCC facility, bulk collections, and then our alleyway customers. And what they did was they found the specific costs associated with those services provided, and were able to break that down for us. For example, for our alley customers, the specific targeted costs that are incurred by the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund for those customers. And we did the analysis to break down what those costs equate to on a per resident unit or per home unit for those that receive that service. The recommendations that we made, that were made at the bottom there, were to add an additional $1.61 for our alley customers. and that would cover the majority of the costs for the alley services. It doesn't recover full cost, but it's the majority of those costs for alley services. And as you know, back in February, we shared the majority of the comments we got back from the public throughout the public outreach process, and almost 90%, 88% of residents that talked about alley services were in favor of keeping alley services, even with the $1.61 increase. For bulk collection, 2 free visits or 2 free bulk collections during the calendar year, and then a $30 cost. That $30 cost is the actual cost that we pay Waste Management when we do a bulk collection pickup. So it's just recovering actual costs. There's no markup on that at all. And that covers 98% of households. So looking at the data with our consultant, we looked at who's utilizing the service. And when council recommended we go to 2 free bulk pickups, 98% of residences fall within that category and would be fine with no extra cost to them. It's really the 2% that overutilize the service that would then have to pay for those additional bulk collections. For the RSWCC visits, 2 free per calendar year, then $10 per visit, up to 400 pounds, and then you pay for any weight above 400 pounds in 20-pound increments. Again, with those 2 free visits per calendar year, that would accommodate, based on all the data that we looked at, 95% of households in Chandler, based on the utilization that they had, would see no impact based on this change. The 5% of individuals that overutilize the service would then be helping to pay for those services. By making these changes, instead of a 6% across the board, where everyone's paying 6% increase to cover some of these specific services for all customers, these individual customer groups that had specific costs associated with them, by charging them for those costs, we're able to bring down the system-wide increase to a 3.4% increase for solid waste customers. Again, from an equity standpoint, that realigns who's paying for which services and only charging those that use that specific service or use it more than is normal for the customer base. So here's our solid waste percentage increase and bill example. Our anticipated revenue increase is 3.4% for the year again. That takes our average monthly fee from currently $17.95 to $18.56. Of course, if you're an alley customer, that would go up to $20.17 because of the specific fees associated with the alley services. This chart just combines those percentage increases across the different classifications of customers, so you can kind of see holistically what the increases are across them. One thing to caution is don't add them up and say, okay, well, residential is going up 5, almost 6%, because each component of that is a different percentage of the total bill. So in total, right underneath, we can see what the net effect is on those bills. So for example, in residential, the current today, an average residential customer is paying $74.50 per month for those services, and that will be going up to $75.89 for those services. And then alley services is right underneath, going up to $77.50. And you can see across multifamily, non-residential, as well as landscape, what those the average increase would be to those different customer classifications. One thing that we wanted to make sure that we included, the majority of our customers are residential, of course. We have, a vast majority of them are residential customers. So we wanted to kind of do a comparison to other Valley cities, just to remind the public specifically the value that they get for the utilities that they pay for here in the city of Chandler. Our existing rate there is at the bottom, the very lowest, at $74.50. We'll be going up to $75.89, keeping us well below the next, which is Gilbert, which had some significant increases over this last year, and they're at $87. So you can kind of do a comparison as to the value that we get for the very robust systems that we do provide our residents that ensure that they have the services needed that they request. So for these changes to be effective, an ordinance and resolution are both needed. Ordinance number 5007 before you tonight allows for changes to the City Code Chapter 44 and 50. Chapter 44 is a solid waste code, and we have the policy changes in there. Chapter 50, we have our rates all outlined in there for the water, wastewater, and reclaimed water. So we had to make changes to both of those chapters. And then anytime we change the fee schedule, we need a resolution. So resolution 5558 is the resolution to change the fee schedule, which is where our solid waste fees are all located. They're not in the chapter themselves, they're actually in the fee schedule. So just some kind of final steps to implementation here. So the majority of these are complete. Tonight is our public hearing. Tonight also is the introduction of the ordinance and the adoption of the resolution to increase water, reclaimed water, wastewater, and solid waste rates. The final adoption of the ordinance to increase water, reclaimed water, wastewater, and and wastewater, and the changes in Chapter 44 is May 12th, so that'll come back to council at the next council meeting. And then we'll implement cost of service utility rates anticipated July 1st of 2022. With that, Mayor and Council, I'll be happy to answer any questions with a reminder to the public that may be watching, if they visit chandleraz.gov/proposed utility rates, a plethora of information is there. The cost of service studies are there, so they can kind of get a deeper dive into the information that was presented tonight.
Thank you, Matt. I'll start with some comments. So, and maybe with a question. How do you feel? Obviously, we can always figure out new ways to get the word out about what we're doing. But in terms of what you did, I mean, I saw it in my water bill, certainly, and others a while ago. How do we rate, how do we compare to, I guess, what has been the norm? How did we add new communication ways? How do we compare to other cities when we do these types of notification?
Yeah, Mayor, that's a great question. As far as how we compare to other cities, I'm not as familiar with the outreach programs that they have, but I can tell you what we did was we tried to be as robust as possible. Of course, as you mentioned, there's always things that we find after the fact we could improve on, and we try to do that each and every year that we have these. Some of the information that we got from our Kappa group, for our web page, we had over 1,600 hits on our website. So that's a lot of involvement in that website as well. Our YouTube video, the presentation was 363 views. In all fairness, one of those was my mom, so it might be 362 views. We had a press release that went out in January. Our city scope went out for January and February, so all ratepayers during that time period would have received it, and it gave them that website to go to for additional information. We had our 3 public meetings, which we talked about. There were about 200 people that participated either in person or online in those meetings, and they generated almost 400 comments that came in either through phone or through email that we cataloged and tracked all of those comments. The majority of those, again, 88% of them were related to the alleys. We had 4 news articles, one in the Community Impact paper, one in Santan Sun, one in the Chandler News, one in the Wrangler News. And then I don't know what the magic is that goes on behind the scenes, but they had boosted promotional social media posts. And those boosts create what's called impressions. And for our residential focused media blast, we had 36,621 impressions. The alleyway had 16,500 impressions, and our non-residential had 15,774 impressions. So a lot of people had access to the information, viewed the information. We try as best we can to make sure the information is available. Some of the issues we run into, for example, when we first went live with our website, we didn't have the dates locked down yet for our public meetings. And so those dates were TBD, to be determined. And then as soon as we got those dates, we were able to publish them. But I think, from the standpoint of what we did, I think we did a fairly good job of providing this information, trying to get it out early to individuals so that they had access to it and could comment and provide feedback to mayor and council.
Yeah, I think this is I was trying to think, is it my 3rd or 4th rate study that I've done since I've been here? And I think Councilmember Orlando probably has 4 or 5 under his belt. So I'm extolling your experience and wisdom. Chandler continues to be known as a city that plans ahead, and I really appreciate we had robust conversations with this, and even I, our neighbor to the east, who hadn't done a rate increase for 10 years, and then this is a bigger nut to swallow for them with pretty radical changes. We've been comparing ourselves to other cities' overall cost of service, and Gilbert has always been a little less than us until this time, but as they're finally equilibrated their water, wastewater, solid waste, it's put us really where we want to be, which is the best service, lowest cost of service. And I want to thank staff for, even though it's painful, bringing this to us in such a time. And I want to thank council for the robust conversation that we've had around this, and staff for listening to us. We came back with things that wasn't part of your plan and asked for more study, asked for different plans, and I really like the work that council and the staff went in to get us to this point. So, council, additional questions or comments? Councilmember Orlando.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And Matt, I attended every one of the public hearings, did an outstanding job, and you were consistent in your message. And actually, if you felt that there was a delta in what you were saying, you've actually improved it and made sure that was highlighted in the next meeting. So I commend you on that one. Your jokes, though, we got to talk about that, Matt.
Working on them.
Let's set up lunch, okay? I'll buy. Oh, no, they're fine, Matt. They're fine jokes. Thank you. So Matt, the fee structure you put out was 5-year period. I know you kind of glossed over. I want to make sure every year we'll be voting on those. You'll be looking at those fees, looking at the balance left in the portfolio, and then either adjusting them upwards or downwards, correct?
Correct. Through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, that's absolutely what we do on an annual basis. In fact, the cost of service alignment that we talk about for wastewater, because it's more out of line than some of the others. Part of that is because the last time we did these rate implementations, we implemented year 1, but by the time we got to year 3, we didn't need the rate increase because of some adjustments that were made by John Knutson and his group to allow us not to have a major capital infrastructure need. So we were able to not go forward with those rate increases. And we look at that on an annual basis just to make sure that if there is a rate increase needed, we're doing it. But if there isn't, we absolutely don't.
Good. Follow-up question. I don't know if you could answer this, or I know Josh, somebody that the infrastructure bill, and there was a lot of discussion over the last 3 months. Any of these projects could be affected by that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, I'll have to speak in generalities because there's still a lot that we don't know, and we don't have a lot of the guidance on how that money is going to be distributed. I know it's going to come down. We're being told through a lot of the federal agencies, and certainly we would like to pursue that as much as we can. But without having specific guidance yet on how to access that money, it's very difficult to plan a rate case around that. And so obviously, as Mr. Dunbar just said, if we were able to succeed in getting some of those dollars and we didn't wind up needing some of the rate increases in the future that are planned, or maybe at a lower rate increase, we would certainly factor that into the next time we came before you to talk about rates.
No, I can assure you, we'll definitely be doing that. From what we've been hearing, there has been a lot of water, as you know, involved, in a lot of piping systems, infrastructure systems. And we had several discussions over that. So I guess the key here is that there is some opportunity to obviously utilize those funds to potentially offset some of the costs.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Councilmember, one of my 2 main goals that I'll be going to DC in 2 weeks, working with GPEC, but specifically is to look at infrastructure that affects cities and the CHIPS Act. 75% of advanced manufacturing semiconductors is done in Chandler, and we bear a larger share the city cost of those things. So in both of those cases, I hope to, with my cohort of other leaders, to address that. But we'll have a chance to vote on that if indeed we have money that comes in, and maybe these rate increases can again be deferred or dampened. So, Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. And Matt, thank you. Great presentation. And, I just want to commend your staff for the way you handled this. And it's taken a long time, but it's very thought out. And I think the most important thing is to listen to the community. I think we learned, too, don't mess with the alleys. So future council members that are out there, don't mess with the alleys. And, you know, one of the things though that I want to do, I'd like to make a motion to
Wait.
vote.
This is a public hearing.
Well,
So that'll be fine.
I'd like to make a motion though to kind of make maybe an amendment or a stipulation so that we can come back and review this in about a year. Because I still want to see where the pricing is as it relates to the 75% instead of the 100% for the wastewater. And so if we could maybe get a commitment from staff to circle back on this, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'll be the next two items. This is a pure public hearing that will, so hang that thought.
You bet.
Additional comments? Councilmember Harris.
Yes, thank you. You done set the bar high.
That was good.
You like that?
I like that.
All right. Mr. Dunbar. But I had a
Mayor,
question.
excuse me, Mayor, you could join us for lunch too.
I had a couple of questions just in regards to, you know, obviously with this rate, when would this rate go into effect, this increase?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Harris, the effective date would be July 1st of this current fiscal year.
Okay.
Or next fiscal year is July 1st. So
Oh, is 2023, July 1st of 2023, this will go into
July
effect?
1st, 2022,
Oh,
which is
2022.
the first day of next fiscal year. We have a weird
Okay.
new year here. So.
Got it. 'Cause we're on the fiscal year, not the calendar year.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask city manager about, you know, July 1st is coming up really quickly. You know, everyone's recovering from the pandemic and, you know, a lot of things have happened. And I wanted to just kind of better understand if we looked at this to January, pushing this to January, which would give more time for people to, you know, add those, you know, make their adjustments to their budget. What type of impact would that look like for the city of Chandler if we was to say, hey, let's look at this to January 23, then go into effect?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harris. I'll speak generally and then I'll kick it over to our Chief Financial Officer, Don Lang, to give you the specific numbers that go with that. But as you heard Mr. Dunbar say earlier, this actually was delayed already. If you think about it that way, we were making sure that we had the most current data, and obviously COVID-related impacts delayed some of our study work. And so this has already been delayed from what would be our normal every other year schedule that you're all accustomed to. There would be an impact on the budget, certainly, by doing that. We would have to readjust the budget that, in fact, we're going to be talking about tomorrow morning to make that impact clear. But I'll turn it over to Dawn to give you the specifics that go into that.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor, Councilmember Harris, we looked at that. If we were to delay 6 months across all the enterprise funds, it'd be about 2.2 million would be the impact. So it is significant, and there's specifically one fund that would be impacted that would require a larger rate increase. The others we felt we could kind of spread or adjust capital projects, but it would probably be the water fund that we would have to have a higher increase on the next one.
Follow-up question. When you talk about, you know, the higher water increase, so basically if we say delay, then basically the water bill will go up by?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Harris, if we say delay from July 1st to January 2023, the water bill rate change, instead of a 2.5% on our next increase, what would be needed, we would have to take that up to 3 to 3.5% because to make up that revenue difference. But we cannot change what's being recommended right now because that's what we went out on public outreach for and everything else. So it is 2% revenue requirement with cost to service. Each of the different customer categories that Matt just discussed would be impacted exactly as presented to our residents.
So just for 100% clarity, if we said delay, then this process that we started will start back over again, and we'll have to go back through the public notifications.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Harris, we actually kind of ran through all these scenarios prior to this discussion tonight. And in consulting with our city attorney, Because we've already done the full breadth of what's required in Arizona revised statutes, if council made a motion this evening to delay it to January, we would not have to repeat all the public outreach. It would move forward just like it is presented tonight. It would just be a delay to the implementation of the ordinances till January 1st. But on the backside, we are planning future rate increases, and our very next rate increase planned for January of 2024 would require us to take that projection higher because of that loss of revenue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional comments from council. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, great presentation, and
Thank you.
I don't mind your jokes at all. But I do have a question that clearly we have a path. This is what this is about, having a path. This is the rate. This is what the public can expect, and so that's good. This is the way we do a lot of things. And if there, for the future, if there is mitigating circumstances and there was something that came up where we had an additional need beyond what we've already projected, we can always redo this in the future, in 2 years, 3 years. Isn't that correct?
Sorry, through the mayor, Vice Mayor Rowe, that is absolutely correct. It is a very large endeavor for staff, working with a consultant on a cost of service study, but that is certainly something we can do.
Today we have a path, and we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. And so I'm all for it. Great. Thank you.
And even, let me follow up with that. So even with that, if there is a desire to change percentage, we could pick that up at the next rate increase if we want to move the one fund from 75 to 100. And we can make adjustments after this particular item. And that's the will of the council, and that will come to us for a rate increase the next time, correct?
Mayor, that is absolutely correct. We would just base it on the adjustments stated in our current cost of service study, but we would adjust it accordingly based if rate increases were higher or lower, we would look at those adjustments.
And the one thing that, again, I'm speaking to the choir up here, but that is not negotiable as an enterprise fund. We have to fund these water, and we can't take this out of general. We can't say, we're just not going to do this. It's not fair, or it's not this. As an enterprise fund, it's required to pay for itself. And this is a way that we have done for decades in terms of slow, incremental, anticipated increases rather than surprising everybody with large ones because we've not done our job up here, correct?
Mayor, you are correct.
Okay. Council, additional questions? Otherwise, I do have some comment cards. All right. Let me wade into these the way that I've gotten them. First is just a comment. The other ones are speaker cards. Comment card is from Nevin Baju, and I apologize for if I butchered your last name, sir. Simple comment, trash can to stay in alley. And Nevin, I've got one word for you. Amen. The people have spoken. We are 100% with you. The trash cans will stay in the alley. Our first speaker card then is by John Suway. I'm sorry, 398 North Hartford. John, are you here? Oh, thank you, sir. If you please come on up to the dais. You've got 3 minutes. Please state your name and address.
I have some papers I'd like to give to whoever.
Matt Burdick will come take that, and then we will capture that. But are you?
For each council member.
Yeah. Sir, are you able to come up, or do you need? Okay. Okay. Okay.
76.
I'm slow and I'm not 76. So and sir, if you'd state your name and address, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. At 30 seconds left, that green light will turn yellow. And then wrap it up when it turns red, please.
Okay. My name is John Sullivan. I live at 398 North Hartford Street. And I and most of my neighbors want alley collection to continue. My alley is between North Hartford. I'm gonna skip that since you kind of agree with that.
We all do.
Well, let's go on beyond that. To use curbsides. Oh, wait. Okay. There are, I'm kind of skipping, I shouldn't have done it. There are 6 houses on North Vine. Anyway, let's skip that. There's people that are using, that are saying that on one out part of the alley, that they have alley dumpsters. The other side are having contained curbside. Yet on both sides, on Vine and Hartford Street, there's 2 only that are using curbside. The rest are they have to be using something. So they're using alley. And why not make it to where everybody that wants alley, I have what I passed around, there's on the map part, there are, if you can understand it, I try to make it easy, where they want alley and they're willing to pay for it. And why not let them do it? But there's a couple, well, one in particular who always wants curbside alone, and he's standing alone, kinda, pretty much alone. Because when I confronted him at first to sign my paper, uh, he told me that everybody on this side is agreeing to curbside, and yet there's only 2 on each side that are using curbside. And let's go on to the next good part. The new charges to bulk pickup, allowing 2 free pickups instead of what we have now, 1 every 6 weeks, which is 6 less than what we have. We currently have about, I don't know. I don't know where I'm at. But anyway, yeah, 6, we're going from like every 2 months, so that would be about 8 a year, and we're going to 2. And the bulk, uh, uh, okay, that's bulk pickup, and yeah, I kind of lost. Should have read it. The free 2 free visits. Presently, I think we have unlimited. We can do. I think we can do free unlimited. And going to, my time's up. Well, I hope you read what I said. It's made a lot of sense.
Mayor.
Sir,
Okay.
we'll certainly read this, and I'm wondering particularly with the alley, sounds like you live on the west side with your address, but you're saying on the
Correct.
east side of Hartford, it's kind of almost sounds like left Twix and right Twix and the candy bars, but we'll have staff look into your request with that as well as your others. So thank you, sir.
Okay.
Next up is Rick Human. Mr. Human, please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Rick Human, 4310 West Dublin Street. Set up there many years when we did water rates, and I think I know a little about the water. I'm here to talk as representative, as the chair of the Chamber of Commerce here in Chandler, representing over 1,500 businesses, over 170,000 employees. I'm also an HOA president as well. Nobody's going to argue the presentation that Matt made, and Dawn does an amazing job of explaining the different rates and things like that. Right now, with the inflationary pressures that we're all facing as a business community, the fact of being asked to delay this until January when we can do our budgets, people's budgets are done. Our budget's been done for many months. Most companies are running on a January 1st to January 1st timeframe. You can't anticipate things until something's approved. You're approving it today, and possibly 45 days from now, you're going to have a major rate increase for our businesses and our HOAs. Irrigation rates going up 6%, which will affect a lot of homeowners associations, especially in July when it's the heaviest water use as well. So the $2 million that we're talking about potentially delaying, if businesses can plan and we're talking about maybe January of 24 actually going that extra number, is a way to plan the business. We run our businesses. We can't all of a sudden, with enough inflationary pressures right now, with fuel prices, electricity, all these different things going on, transportation costs for our businesses, adding another layer on that is going to hurt our business community. That's why I'm asking you tonight. I'm not going to argue about rates, cost of service, and all those kinds of things. But I really do urge you to take a look at delaying this to January 1st, which will affect our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Human. Councilmember Stewart.
Josh, my memory might be serving. Josh, did we receive any emails or phone calls or any comments from any of our businesses about this rate increase?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, we did have, as you heard, extensive outreach, and we did have quite a few conversations beyond that with our business community. I can have Ms. Lang or Mr. Dunbar kind of summarize those conversations that happened outside of the process.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm interested.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, we did have several conversations with the business community. In our presentation that we did for directed to non-residential businesses, we did have several businesses that were there. And the majority of the comments were just questions for clarification purposes. We didn't receive any comments either for or against from any of the comments that we received. Some of the comments that we received through comment cards, we may not know if it's specifically a business or a resident. And so some of those comments may have come from a business owner, but the majority of them, again, were related to the alley services.
In HOAs, what was the feedback from?
Yeah, so from an HOA perspective, we did hear from one HOA, and they just wanted clarification on when the rates would be in effect. Other than that, the only other conversations I've had with HOAs happened before this went into effect. So back in October, November, when we were receiving calls from them. So
Thank you, Matt. I'd love to get that contact from that HOA after meeting. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, just a question for you. I know you did a great presentation, but one of the things that, and I probably slept through it okay, but one of the things that you may not have shown to this group was the cost of services compared to other communities. Did you show that?
Yeah, you did.
That was there tonight?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Rowe, we did show for the residential side, the comparison. But if members of the public wanted to go online, the presentations that we did with mayor and council showed all of the classifications. So not only residential, but businesses, non-residential, as well as our reclaimed. So it showed all those classifications and compared us to other Valley cities, so they could see those comparisons in all of those classifications.
And when you went out and researched and found out what the various rates were and what they were advancing to or whatever, at least one community had a pretty dramatic increase because they had delayed some steps that maybe they could have done to kind of, iron that out a little bit.
Correct. Through the mayor, Councilmember Rowe, or Vice Mayor Rowe, that's exactly what we found. In fact, in the presentation that we did tonight, that slide, Gilbert has put in some new rates, and so we included those new rates in the comparison so we could see what their actual existing rates are, whereas the other cities are based on last year's rates. So they may have incorporated other rate increases that aren't in that, so they may be higher even than what's shown here. So for tonight's presentation, the only update was Gilbert. However, in the majority of all of the classifications that we looked at, we were at the bottom, either 1 or 2. In some of them, we're number 3, but those are based on last year's rates comparing to the new rates that would go into effect for us.
Thank you.
So one last comment for myself, unless others, and then we've got one more speaker card. So what my understanding is that we did reach out to the business community and made information available to the HOAs when specific groups were highlighted to us or responded to us. We also went back to them and answered their questions. Is that correct?
Mayor, that's absolutely correct. In fact, of all the comment cards that we received online, many emails from those comment cards, if anyone had a specific question, we reach out to them specifically to address any questions that they had. If they said, I don't understand why we would do this, we reached out and kind of tried to explain that to them. So we really tried for those that reached out as well to make sure that they understood what was happening, why the changes were going into effect, and did a lot of outreach in that form. Again, to the fact that, we learn new opportunities to educate and outreach. In a conversation Don Lang and I had with Rick Human, he mentioned the Nextdoor app as a good avenue to potentially do some communication with. And so we've noted that, and that'll be one of the items on our checklist of public outreach, as well as flyers at the RSWCC. So as we get additional avenues to do outreach, our absolute intent is to reach as many of our residents and businesses as we can so that they're informed about any changes that are forthcoming.
Okay. Additional comments, or should we bring up our third speaker? All right. Our third and final speaker card at this point is Ruth Jones. Mrs. Jones, if you'd please come up, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
I hope they don't start now. I walk slow. Thank you. Ruth Jones, 2734 East Birchwood Place, Chandler, Arizona, 85249. And while I also appreciate Matt's jokes, I'm living in a house with dad jokes. I have serious concerns about this rate increase occurring at this time. While we had plenty of printed material for those that are web savvy to receive, our public meetings were not well presented to the public. The first meeting held, which I attended them, and the first meeting that was held was the one for residential customers. There were less than 20 residents there. And I can tell you, because of my own difficulty in finding it, that it was not advertised. It was not on the city calendar. It was not in the city scope. The city scope did tell people their rates were going up, but not that there was an opportunity to learn about this increase and to ask questions and voice their opinions. So you did not have a large group of people representing our largest group of homeowners available. In addition to that, when I came to the second meeting for our alley customers, I saw a much larger group. And I said, wow, how did you guys know about the meeting? And I was told by the people who were attending, we received a letter. So at the first meeting, I had asked, why were there such a difficulty in getting the word out? And I was told, well, we just didn't realize and it was an oversight. So at the second meeting, when I saw all those people, I asked again, why is it that we were able to give a letter to this group and not to our entire community so that they could have their voices heard? At that point, I was told, well, we have too many residents to attend that meeting. They can just read about it online. That worked for someone like me that is computer savvy, but we have many residents in our community that are elderly. We have residents that are disabled. And for them, they're not able to navigate these websites that well. They don't necessarily have the access. So the public meetings are a vital opportunity for them to have their voices heard. And that was missed. In addition to that, I agree with Rick's comment. We have not taken into account the impact that this will have on our businesses going forth and on all of our residents in the sight of our 40-year high inflation that we are currently experiencing. I think we need to be careful about raising rates at this time without any of our residents having an opportunity to plan for that. And I think that the people who will be impacted the most will be those on fixed incomes, our elderly, and those that have the least resources to pay this increase. So I would encourage you to wait and research this further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Staff, 2 questions. One, for those who are on fixed income, is the AOK program still engaged? So I realize we're talking $10 a year, except if you're alley, correct? With these rate increases. But for those who are experiencing, struggling with paying this, what other mitigation relief do we have as well? Can you go into how we advertise the public meetings that Mrs. Jones referenced?
You bet, Mayor. So first of all, your first question, all of a sudden I'm thinking about your second.
Assistance to
AOK,
those who
thank
might
you.
struggle
Yes,
with this.
AOK is an option for any of our residents' businesses to add to their utility bills. That fund is accumulated and is available to anyone struggling paying their utility bills. And that is absolutely a resource that our utility billing representatives will work with citizens that are struggling and guide them towards that. Additionally, there are various federal dollars that we have received as a city to help with utility and rent assistance that are being used currently, have been used through the pandemic, and continue to be used. So those are both very, very good resources within our city. And of course, our housing team is out there, or neighborhood resources team is in the audience, and they have been working hard to make sure that those funds are connected to the people in need. And then on the, to just address a couple of Ruth's comments, we Ruth was at the meetings. It is not typical for a large attendance at public meetings. This, and I would say this was the first year, this was actually the highest attendance we've had, and it was because we were able to offer them virtually for the first time. First time in all of the history of doing this through the years that we've had both a virtual option as well as an in-person option. So we were able to add quite a few more folks to the discussion. They were able to listen in and also add comments that we reviewed at the end of every meeting. To address the, let's see, there was a question that was, or a statement made regarding the difficulty to find the location of the meetings. And I know Matt did address this in his presentation, but initially when we started the public outreach, we showed in the Cityscope came out before we actually set the public meetings because it gets published previous to that date. So the Cityscope just referenced the web link or where to go on the website to get to that information. And of course the cycle on those Cityscopes go out with all of the cycles of the utility bills. They get distributed. So they start early and then they move on through the process. And it was somewhere within the first to second week that those dates were locked down and we were able to start really publishing the dates of the public meetings, dates and times, and the links for the virtual option. So anyone who could not come out to the meetings could still listen in. And we did talk to some other citizens about that as well that were present that evening, and we did receive comments that they were able to find the information without a problem. So I am sure there's all levels though of abilities in trying to find that, but we're always here. We're able to you can get in contact with us. There's been a comment link online. If anyone had any interest in coming to those meetings, that link in the Cityscope would direct them directly to that comment button that we could have responded immediately if there was any struggle for anyone that wanted to be there. And finally, we did do a targeted mailing to our alley customers. And that was important because of the change and the response we got with the possible change to the alley service. So we wanted to make sure that everyone was well informed. And that was direction from mayor and council to make sure we weren't just moving forward with the process of elimination, but actually talk about maybe the thought of adding additional cost to keep the service. On the flip side, the general resident population that is impacted by the rate changes, we actually added on every utility bill notes for 2 cycles that talked about upcoming rate changes, and again, the web link on where to go to get that information. So we were thinking through that, and most people are either getting an emailed utility bill or through auto pay, they get their emailed bill, or they'll get a mailed bill, either way. But there was a notice on every bill that went to customers, businesses, golf courses, like landscaping. Anyone who receives a utility bill would receive that.
Councilmember Ellis. Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm still going to be talking to Don a little bit. I know that there was a period of time when we had this thing very lopsided, where the citizen were paying a little bit more than their share, and the business were not. And that also helped put us in a position where we had to go and check it out again and making sure that we bring it back equitably, as we mentioned. Is that correct?
Through Councilmember Ellis. We do have it was delayed, or we did not cut water service through the pandemic, and then it was started back up, and I can't remember the exact date that we started with cutoffs again. But as folks get close to that cutoff date, that is a conversation that is had with our utility services. There's a mailing, there's numerous opportunities after the mailing and customer contact that's happening to make sure that there is an opportunity to talk to us so that we can connect them with services if that is truly the need. Sometimes it's just they forgot to pay the bills, and then they have the opportunity to take care of it before the cut. But it is unfortunately the nature of the service. It's a billing process, and there is a process to get towards cut, but we will try to avoid that as much as possible with our customers. Mhm.
Councilmember Lopez.
So thank you, Mayor. So Councilmember Ellis kind of reminded me of one of the reasons when we did this original discussion on why there were a lot of us that pushed so quickly for 100%. If you do look historically, again, back, 30, 40 years ago when Councilmember Orlando was on the council, I think, was it? I'm sorry. Look close, 20. Okay, sorry. Sorry, it just came out.
Him and Dr. Chandler.
That usually it's around a 50% where we try to meet at the 5-year mark. Again, we're trying to meet 50%. And it's the last one we were on to, I recall we were trying to go 50, 75%. We were trying to push it up. And this year we went to 100 because the cost of service, and I think I remember after Councilman Memo said this, I was very, very affected. I was to say, it was almost like I almost jumped up out of my chair when I found out that for almost the entire time, our residents have been subsidizing businesses on the water rates. And that's why this council, this cycle, pushed for that 100%. Because, I mean, I can truly appreciate the businesses out there that's struggling with what's going on with inflation, but so are the households. And we're asking if we do delay this, and this is a consideration that all of us will need to take underway. If we are planning to delay this, we are further putting the burden onto our residents to subsidize the water that our businesses are receiving. So that's kind of where I'm drawing the line and saying that I do think the businesses and the residents need to pay their equal fair share as they are using it. And that's why we push so hard for the 100% compensation in order to make things, aligned. And that's why I am not really a proponent for delaying the implementation because, again, residents are struggling just as much as businesses, and I don't think we need to put that burden on them because the businesses may not have already done their budgets. So, because household budgets are just as thin. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Mayor. Just, Josh, prior to you becoming city manager, and no shots to any city managers before you, when in our business community, how many businesses was behind on their bills prior to the pandemic? Like in terms of dollars.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harris, I do not have that information ready for you tonight. We could certainly get that for you. We could get a historical look at that, but we didn't come prepared with that information tonight. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, because I was shared that to Councilwoman Ellis' point that we've never really shut off businesses. We never really came after businesses when they were behind. And I want to say that number was in somewhere. Some of the businesses here was somewhere in hundreds of thousands of dollars behind on their water bill. One particular time, one particular company just would not pay at all, and I think it was like $200,000-$300,000. They have been behind for years, but nevertheless, we're here, and I want to try to my thing was that I'm hearing from our community, and I'm also hearing from the businesses, and both have said that we could have done a better job in communicating, and that's what they feel that we could have did a better job. And I'm hearing from our expert that said, hey, we've communicated, and historically we've done better because we've had more virtual technology to communicate, to get the information out there that this could be happening. We're doing better this year. Okay, we're doing better. Okay, we're doing better this year. Okay, yeah. So we've gotten better at what we're doing. Okay, got it. All right. So I just kind of, but I think what I'm hearing is that the from the different constituents that they want more time to get past this bad time, and whether it's from the businesses or whether from, you know, if we listen to the testimony tonight that said, hey, you know what, this $10 a year increases could be a detriment to them, but also because they need to adjust their business. But also, I'm hearing too that hey, if the businesses don't carry their weight, then the residents is going to have to carry the weight for the businesses. So I kind of you looking at me weird. So where I'm going, so where am I going with this? I just wanted to acknowledge what I heard today, because I didn't want it to go without said that, you know, staff, let's always continue to make sure we admonish and making sure that are we using the best technology, we put it in the scope, are we doing the best methods to communicate out there, and making sure that that's happening. And it sounds like we're doing that, and we've done better. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that, you know, if we move forward, I just want us to continue to work with staff and continue to make sure that we are using current techniques to communicate our message, so that we can get more response, not just 15,000, because we have 280,000 people here, but making sure that we're doing the best we can. It sounds like we've got to this place and we've done a good job. We've done better than we've done in the past, but we're here today. I'm just kind of hearing that the community still wanted more outreach and still wanted there. So I want us to kind of look further into making sure we do a better job as we grow with more constituents, to make sure that we're listening. We're hearing that some are not having access. Let's make sure that we're out there, whatever that takes. Thank you.
We're still in the public hearing. Done? Any other comments before we close the public hearing and then vote on items 30 and 31? Seeing none, I'd like to officially close the public hearing. Council, next we have item number 30 on our action, which we've talked about that in length with this. Is there a motion on the floor?
Mayor.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, I'd like to move for the approval of the introduction and tentative adoption of the ordinance number 5007, amending chapter 50, sections 50-11, 50-12, and 50-15, and chapter 44, sections 44-4, 44-5, 44-6, 44-7 of the Code of the City of Chandler to change certain water, wastewater, reclaimed water, and solid waste fees effective July 1st, 2022.
So we have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Council, any additional questions or comments, clarifications necessary? Councilmember Stowe, we do want to make sure that you're not passed over. So why don't you ask?
I'm chomping at the bit here. I just want to make sure that we stipulate that we're going to review this in a year. I know we go into effect on January 1st. I want to look at the wastewater, because when we're talking about the subsidization, right, that it's important that we get to that 100%. And if it makes sense, because I know that years ago, you know, we didn't have to implement those significant increases. So I'd like to look at it next year. And then if we need to go to that full 100, we should. I got a couple of emails about that. I want to make sure that that we follow up on that. Is that okay?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, we can certainly, at the time you start preparing for your next rate review that wastewater 75 versus 100% cost of service model.
Sure. And then one other thing, and I don't know if it's appropriate now, but I'm going to add it anyway. I'd love to see a little bit more communication on the AOK program, because this will affect the federal printing of cash is just destroying fixed income families and people that are working poor. And so we definitely need to help step up where we can with this rate increase. Thank you.
And just to be clear, city manager, so when you say the next time, will that be next year or before we vote on the phase 2 of this rate increase, correct? That you'll bring this back to us?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
the latter.
All right. Council, please vote.
Motion carries unanimously or motion carries by majority with Councilmember Orlando dissenting.
Okay. And council, next on our agenda is item number 31. Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll do it, Mayor.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yeah, I move for the approval of resolution number 5558, amending the citywide fee schedule related to the Public Works and Utilities Department, Solid Waste Division.
All right. There's a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Vice Mayor. Council, additional comments or questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion carries by majority with Councilmember Orlando dissenting.
All right. Council, thank you. Next on our agenda is, we've got certainly item number 32 that we already approved as part of consent. We do have one unscheduled public appearance card. Mr. Klassen, please come up, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
I thought you forgot about me.
Never, sir, never at all.
My name is Glenn Clausen. I live at 380 West Aloe Place. I am your city volunteer of the year for the year 2013. Thanks in part to Chief Wiggins, who afforded me the opportunity to serve my community. I'm bringing good news. A while back, when I brought my ferry by airplane over here from Falcon Field for its permanent home here at the Chandler Airport, as I made my approach to the final landing on the west end of the runways, I was hit by a gust of wind. I saved the landing, but immediately went to the airport manager's office and asked for a windsock on the west end. A windsock is basically a weather vane, but it also gives you the approximate speed of the wind. It's engineered to do that. So a pilot at a quick glance can see what he or she is facing. Well, it's arrived. It came here on January. And I just wanted to thank everyone who made that happen, because you've just increased the safety at Chandler Airport significantly. Second of all, because I'm an aircraft owner, I was given an opinion question. What would you recommend at the airport? And I said, well, the airport manager, I'd like to see an airport manager that is actually a pilot and owns his or her own airplane. That would be huge. I'd like to introduce Ryan, who I met yesterday. Ryan is a pilot. He owns his own Cessna 150, and he's a graduate degree. He holds a graduate degree. And I just wanted to thank you for Ryan. And thanks for this opportunity to speak to you. It's like seeing old friends. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Klassen. Council, next on our agenda is current events and comments, and I'll start. I received a letter a couple days ago from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, and it touched me, and I wanted to read it because it brings attention to some of our folks in the city. Dear Mayor Hartke, I want to personally thank you for your support of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community in our time of great need. On April 8th, the Salt River Fire Department experienced a tragic incident that took the life of firefighter Brendan Beasy and critically injured firefighter Tyler Pecker. This incident was the first of its kind in the history of the SRFD, Salt River Fire Department, and was not only devastating to SRFD, but to the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community as a whole. The incident tasked all the resources of our tribal departments to respond and plan for the events that follow. Through it all, your city provided valuable assistance to the community. For that, I want to give you our sincere thanks. You provided vital support so that we could take care of all those in need and honor firefighter Brendan Beasy with full honor funeral. On behalf of the Salt River Fire Department and Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, please extend our sincere gratitude to everyone in your city that provided a role in this effort. So specifically, Chief Twiggins and your department that stepped up. I really wanted to read this letter and thank you and acknowledge your work, and it's appreciated. So thank you, sir. Couple more for me. I wanted to give a extra shout out for yesterday we had the Chandler Employee Advisory Council Appreciation Ice Cream Social. It was a great event. We had hundreds of our employees there. I think I saw even Vice Mayor and Council Member Ellis dancing. It was, I didn't catch a video, but I did see them. It was, I'm not sure if Vice Mayor was doing it willingly, but he was out there. So I do want to thank our City of Chandler staff, our incredibly hardworking individuals, and we certainly would not be the city that we are without each and every one. So I want to say again, kudos to the Employment Advisory Committee for their actions in keeping morale up and really promoting Team Chandler. Thirdly, I do want to invite you all on Monday. Chandler's Fallen Officer Memorial Ceremony will be held on Monday, May 2nd at 8:30 a.m. in the morning of the Public Safety Memorial Plaza. That's between PD and Fire. You can park in the library, the main library parking lot, and then walk south across Boston, and that will take you there. This is always a poignant and moving event, and it is good to be able to do this live again. I am also honored that I will be able to attend part of the National Memorial in DC when I'm there as well. And last but not least, two more for me. We had earlier this week, the city hosted its inaugural partnership event for landlords and property managers who are renting to city housing program participants. And it was great. We had a good amount of folks that were there learning about the program. And as inaugural, this will be happening every year. We honored a renter in our community. And for those who attended, they learned about city incentives for the program, met the housing team, and previewed the new landlord portal, which is launching soon. Also, we unveiled an incentive for people to join this program. So I thought the information was good. And again, kudos to our housing gang. And last but not least, as you all know, Council, we have a busy day tomorrow with an all-day budget briefing. We'll get a better understanding of next fiscal year's budget. The dress code is casual. Let's say my casual, as I'm looking at some of you folks. Probably polo shirts and jeans, okay? No pajamas, no flip-flops. We'll be here between, I think breakfast is served at 8 and we start at 8:30. Is that correct, City Manager? 8:30 start time?
It's 8, correct?
It's 8:15.
8:15,
start time.
excuse me.
8:15 start time. All right. And that will be here. So we've got, you can come at 7:50 and have 25 minutes to eat. So this will give us a robust conversation and opportunity to look at the budget. Councilmember Harris.
I don't know about a robust conversation that early in the morning, but I won't bring my SpongeBob SquarePants pajamas. All right, so I have just a few announcements. Go Suns, they won tonight, so they moving on to the next part of the playoffs. Woo-hoo. Oh, you was? Oh, you won. Spoiler alert, the Suns won. Sorry about that. Councilmember.
Go ahead. Yes.
1-4. I don't know what the score is. I think it's 114 to 109. All right. On to my announcements today. All right. Chandler High School. So I had the opportunity to be a part of Chandler's High School Job and Career Fair to speak with students about careers in civic engagement and opportunities working in the city of Chandler. I also want to thank Chandler High School for allowing me and our HR teams there and our other departments in the Chandler, our other departments in Chandler was there to chat with students about many avenues that they can pursue after graduation. So it was amazing, and thank you to educator Christy. You guys can see her picture. She spearheaded it. It was great. It was awesome. So yeah, so the second announcement, I had the opportunity to go down to the Diamondbacks field with Base Arizona and the Black Student Unions in the East Valley. I was proud to support Base Arizona and the BSUs in Chandler as they were recognized at the Diamondbacks game for Jackie Robinson Day. And you know, Jackie Robinson Day is a very important day for all the baseball, and just wanted to acknowledge Keisha from Base. She's doing a great job. She continues to put Chandler on the map in different places, which also encourages our diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think she's doing a wonderful job with Base Arizona. And that is all my announcements. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Lopez.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, very quickly. Folks, the folks that come down here and take the time to fill out a speaker card and make comments, Ruth, John, Glenn, hey, we are open to discussion. This is what this is about. So thank you for coming, and whether we necessarily end up agreeing at the end of the night or whatever, we want to hear what you think. So thank you for doing that. And then also annually, probably a couple of times a year, I talk about the food pantries. The weather is already in the 90s, and this is beginning to be the time of the year when some of our organizations need food. And it's not just at Christmas time. People eat all year long. So listen, please keep in mind organizations like Ascend, and they have a food bank. Matthews Crossing, they have a food bank, and then of course the Salvation Army, and then I'm sure there's probably some others, but and then if you have extra food or whatever, you can make a donation. That's great. If Uncle Bob or Aunt Mary don't have anything better to do, organize a food drive and help these folks out. And then to our public safety folks, thank you for always doing a great job, and thank you, Team Chandler. You're awesome. That's it.
Councilmember Stewart.
Nothing from me tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, tonight I would like to also say that Chandler is still putting itself on the map, even all over the world. I have a father, Joseph, with me tonight. He would like to stand and thank Chandler because after the 2021 earthquake, the people of Chandler really rose up and they really helped. Specifically, one of the families here in Chandler donated $10,000 to send to Haiti for Father Joseph to help. I will say that Father Joseph overseen 7 chapels in the remote part of some part of Haiti in the east side, and he has over 10,000 people that he oversees, that he whether do funeral for them, weddings, and everything. And as you can see, this is what happened when the earthquake happened. We were able to advocate here through people of Chandler. We were able to raise some money and send it to NEON, which is the National Haitian American Elected Officials. And Father Joseph was a recipient of that money. He flew from Haiti to come here to be able to be here tonight and say thank you to the people of Chandler for all the. This is what we are talking about. This community, we don't only, I mean, it's not only us that we looked at the world at large and reach out and help other people. So for that, we are grateful. And I believe that Father Joseph is very grateful. He speaks French, so if he says a couple of words, he would like me to translate, I would love to translate. Father Joseph, vous voulez dire un bagay à soir? Vous voulez dire quelque chose?
Yes.
Oui.
Um,
Quoi?
Good evening, everybody.
Okay, he's speaking English now.
Hey, I'm very happy to be with you at Arizona.
Yeah.
I thank you. I love you all. God bless you. God bless Arizona.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so that you know, Father Joseph is my cousin.
Councilmember Orlando.
I can't top that, Mayor, so nothing tonight.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Just very briefly, wanted to thank you for the recognition of our Employee Advisory Committee and those council that were able to make it to the ice cream social. Our chair, Bhavika Bhakta from Public Works and Utilities, and our vice chair, Kathy Flores from Development Services did a great job. They planned that whole event. It was wonderful to see you all there. And I also wanted to mention, Vice Mayor made me think of this. Actually, we also used that event as a food drive for Ascend. And so I got the report today that the employees donated 1,060 pounds of food, which is enough to feed 841 individuals. So great opportunity for a charitable cause with our employee advisory group as well. And secondly, wanted to just, regardless of the outcome and all the discussion we had, and I wanted to thank Don Lang as well as Matt Dunbar and their whole team for the extensive amount of work that goes into these cost of service analyses. This is my first with the city of Chandler. Boy, it is a lot of work, especially during budget season. I know you all as council put a lot of work into this as well. Thank you for the guidance you gave us along the way getting to this point. But just want to recognize our budget team. This is a very big lift for them, and they did a fantastic job getting the information out to you in the community. So just want to thank them publicly, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Do it all over again.
All right, with that, that concludes our meeting.